I thought I'd left the Whitmore name behind until my father's voice hit me like a freight train, pulling me back to a legacy of lies and a truth that'd tear it apart. That's my story: family, betrayal, and freedom. My channel's struggling, so if you're intrigued, please comment 1 to help me out. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Subscribe to see how it ends, and I wish you all good health. I stand in the middle of my small, sleek apartment in Manhattan, the city lights flickering through the floor-to-ceiling windows like sharp blades slicing through the dark. It's nearly 10 p.m., and I've just wrapped up a long day at the office, hours of numbers, charts, and tense meetings with wealthy clients still buzzing in my head. This is the world I built for myself, a world with no room for the heavy shadow of the Whitmore family. At 32, I'm a respected financial consultant, my short brown hair neatly trimmed, my green eyes sharp enough to cut through bullshit. Numbers or people doesn't matter. I love this life. Independent, free, no one telling me what to do or who to be. But tonight, that peace shatters when my phone buzzes on the table, the screen lighting up with a name I've dodged for 6 months. Edmund Whitmore. I stare at it, my finger hovering over the reject button. Edmund Whitmore. My father, the cold steel man who runs Whitmore Industries, a manufacturing empire that used to be Boston's pride. Our relationship's never been warm. The last time we spoke, I yelled at him over the phone, my voice shaking with rage. "I'm done with that company, Dad. You hear me?" He didn't say a word, just hung up like my defiance wasn't worth his time. We haven't talked since. I figured he didn't need me. He's got Nathan, the golden heir, my older brother, the son he picked from the moment he was born. So why is he calling now? I take a deep breath, hit accept, and brace myself. "Lena." His voice crackles through the speaker, dry and flat like winter wind over a dead field. "The company's in trouble. We need to talk." No, hello, no, how are you? Just an order, like I'm some low-level employee, not his daughter. I bite my lip, that old mix of hurt and anger flaring up in my chest. "What do you want?" I ask, forcing my tone to match his ice. "Meet me in Boston, tomorrow." No explanation, no negotiation. He hangs up before I can respond, leaving me standing there, gripping the phone, my mind spinning. I set it down and walk to the window, staring out at the city pulsing below. New York's my home, the place I escaped to, away from the Whitmore shadow. I clawed my way here with a full-ride scholarship, earned degrees in finance, built a career from nothing. I don't need Dad, don't need Whitmore Industries, don't need the pitying looks or cutting words. But his call drags me back to the past, to that big house in Boston where I was a little girl sitting at the dinner table, watching Dad pour red wine and laugh loud about the future. "Nathan's gonna run the company someday," he'd say, his eyes lighting up as he looked at my brother, then 12, messing with his mashed potatoes. Me, 10 years old, with my ponytail and hopeful eyes, I'd pipe up, "What about me, Dad? I want to help too." He'd just laugh, a sharp, dismissive chuckle. He'd reach over, ruffle my hair like I was some annoying chore. "You'll be fine, Lena. Girls don't need companies. They marry into them." It hit like a slap, but I'd laugh along, pretending it didn't sting. Nathan, sitting next to me, would smirk, like I was a little joke in his kingdom. That's when I learned my place in the family. A faint shadow, a backup plan nobody wanted. But there's something else, a blurry memory nagging at me as I stand here, watching the city lights. I remember nights when Mom, Margaret, would scream at Dad behind their closed bedroom door, her voice breaking with fury. "What does your father's will say, Edmund? You can't do this to her!" I was maybe 7 or 8, hiding behind the staircase railing, my heart pounding, not understanding. Dad would roar back, drowning her out. "Don't bring that up again, Margaret!" Then the door would slam and Mom would cry in silence. I never asked, never dared to dig. But now, with Dad's voice echoing in my ear, that memory creeps back like a missing puzzle piece I can't find. Does it have something to do with this call? I don't know. I turn back to the table, pick up the phone, my fingers brushing the screen like it might give me answers. I don't want to go back to Boston, don't want to face Dad, Nathan, all the crap I left behind. I've proven myself, degrees, career, reputation. But deep down, there's this small, stupid part of me that still wants it. A look from Dad that isn't contempt but recognition. I hate myself for it. Hate how my heart still twists when I think of him. Fine, I whisper to myself, my voice shaky. One last time. To show him who I am. I set the phone down, head to my closet, and pull out a small suitcase. Tomorrow, I'll take the train to Boston. Not for love, not for duty, but because I want to stand in front of Edmund Whitmore, look him in the eye, and prove I'm not the little girl he brushed off like some useless thing. I have no idea this trip's about to crack open a secret bigger than anything I've ever imagined. I step off the train in Boston, the cold November air biting at my face as I haul my suitcase toward the looming skeleton of Whitmore Industries headquarters. The building looks wounded, cracked windows, faded paint, a shadow of the powerhouse it once was. I haven't been here in years, and the sight twists something in my gut. Inside, Dad's waiting at the head of a long mahogany table, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his gray eyes dull but piercing. Nathan slouches nearby, his hair a mess, reeking of last night's bourbon. "Hey, sis," he mumbles, barely looking up. I don't bother replying. I drop my bag, pull out my laptop, and demand the financials. What I see makes my stomach drop. $300 million in debt. Revenue down 70%, assets leveraged to the hilt. This isn't a company in trouble, it's a corpse bleeding out. I dive in, because that's what I do, fix things. Days blur into nights as I sit in that sterile boardroom. The hum of my laptop the only sound breaking the silence. I call banks, renegotiate loan terms, slash overhead costs. I meet with investors. Skeptical men in suits who eye me like I'm some desperate kid playing grown-up. I prove them wrong with cold, hard numbers, convincing them to hold off on pulling their money. Every mistake I undo has Nathan's fingerprints on it. Reckless acquisitions, bloated expenses, deals so bad they'd make a rookie blush. He's run Dad's empire into the ground, and I'm the one digging it out. I barely sleep, my eyes burning from staring at screens, my hands trembling from too much coffee. But I keep going. Nathan's useless. He stumbles into meetings late, if at all, muttering excuses like, "The market's been brutal. Bullshit. The market didn't blow $50 million on a failing factory in Ohio. He did. Dad's no better. He just sits there, sipping his damn whiskey, watching me like I'm a pawn on his chessboard." He doesn't say much, just grunts approval when I report progress or nods when I ask for a signature. I start to feel it, this gnawing sense that I'm being used. I'm pouring everything into saving this company, my skills, my time, my sanity, and they're acting like it's nothing, like I'm nothing. It's the same old story. Nathan screws up, and I'm the cleanup crew. One night, maybe 3 months in, I'm alone in Dad's office, digging through a filing cabinet for old contracts. My fingers brush something, a yellowed envelope tucked behind a stack of papers, unmarked except for a faint scribble. Succession. Curious, I pull it out, open it, and scan the first page. It's typed, official-looking, with the words "the true heir" jumping out before I can read more. My heart skips. Then the door bangs open, and Dad's there, his face a storm cloud. "What the hell are you doing?" he snaps, crossing the room in 3 strides. He snatches the envelope from my hands, his grip like iron. "Don't dig into things that don't concern you," he growls, his voice low and dangerous. I flinch, caught off guard. "I was just looking for—" I start, but he cuts me off. "Get back to work." He stuffs the envelope into his desk drawer, locks it, and stalks out. I stand there, pulse racing, questions clawing at me. What was that? Why'd he freak out? But I don't have time to chase it, not yet. 8 months pass in a grind of exhaustion and determination. I pull Whitmore Industries back from the brink. The debt's restructured, investors are back on board, stock prices crawl upward. One morning, I stand in the boardroom, presenting the final numbers to Dad and Nathan. My voice is steady, but my hands shake as I point to the charts. We're stable. Not thriving, but surviving. I wait for a thank you, a nod, anything. Dad grunts, takes a sip of whiskey, and says, "Good." That's it. Nathan smirks, leaning back in his chair. Nice job, sis. Guess you're not totally useless. I clench my fists under the table, heat rising in my chest. I've just spent 8 months undoing his mess, and this is what I get? No recognition, no gratitude. Just the same dismissive crap I've heard my whole life. I pack up my laptop, the silence heavy. I think about that little girl at the dinner table, asking Dad what I could be, only to get laughed off. I think about the nights I stayed up in college, studying until dawn to prove I was more than his backup plan. I've done it. I've saved his precious company, but it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like I've been sucked back into their game, used up and tossed aside. That envelope nags at me too. The true heir. What the hell did it mean? Was it tied to those fights I overheard as a kid? Mom yelling about Grandpa's will? I shake it off. I'm too tired to care right now. I head to the guest room they've set up for me, collapse onto the bed, and stare at the ceiling. I should feel proud. I've done what Nathan couldn't, what Dad wouldn't, but all I feel is hollow. They don't see me, not really. I'm just the fix-it girl, the one they call when they're desperate. I close my eyes, promising myself this is the end. I'll finish this, go back to New York, and leave them behind for good. But deep down, I know it's not that simple, not with that locked drawer whispering secrets I can't unhear. I wake up to the ping of an email on my phone, the morning light barely creeping through the curtains of the guest room in Boston. It's December, 2 weeks before Christmas, and I'm still here, tying up loose ends after 8 months of hell saving Whitmore Industries. I rub my eyes, expecting some investor update, but the subject line stops me cold. Revisions to estate planning, Whitmore. It's from Dad's lawyer. My stomach twists as I open it, scanning the legalese until the truth hits like a punch. Dad's rewritten his will. Everything, the company, the house, the fortune, goes to Nathan. Not a single mention of me. I read it again, then a third time, hoping I've misread, but it's there in black and white. 8 months of my life, my sweat, my sanity, and he's erased me like I'm nothing. I'm shaking as I throw on my coat and storm to the house, the printed email crumpled in my fist. Dad's in his study, sitting behind that damn mahogany desk, whiskey in hand like always. Nathan's sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, oblivious. Mom's in the corner, knitting, her face tight with worry. I don't knock. I barge in and slam the papers onto the desk, scattering pens and papers. Explain this, I demand, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Dad barely looks up, just exhales like I'm a nuisance. I saved your company, I say, louder now, my hands trembling. I fixed Nathan's mess and this is what I get? He finally meets my eyes, his expression flat. Nathan needs it, Lena. You'll be fine. That line, you'll be fine. It's the same knife he's twisted since I was a kid. I want to scream, but before I can, my phone buzzes. Unknown number. I step out, slamming the door behind me, and answer. Lena Whitmore, this is Harold Grayson. I was your grandfather's lawyer. We need to meet, now. His voice is old, raspy, urgent. I don't know what's happening, but something tells me to go. An hour later, I'm in a dingy diner on the edge of Boston, sitting across from a frail man with white hair and shaky hands. He slides a yellowed folder across the table, his eyes darting like he's scared someone's watching. Your grandfather's original will, he says. Read it. I open it, my breath catching as I see my name, Lena Margaret Whitmore, listed as the sole heir to Whitmore Industries. Not Nathan. Me. This can't be real, I whisper, but Grayson leans in. It is. Edmund faked a new will when you were 10. He didn't think a woman could run the company. He buried this, forged documents, made Nathan the heir. I feel the world tilt. My whole life, every dismissal, every "you'll be fine," it was a lie. I was the one Grandpa chose, not Nathan. Grayson keeps going, his voice low. Edmund knew you'd come back to save the company. He let it collapse, counting on your pride, your skill. But he never planned to give you what's yours. He wanted you to fix it, then step aside for Nathan again. I grip the table, my nails digging into the wood. It's not just betrayal. It's a cage he built around me, a game to keep me tethered while stealing my birthright. Rage floods me, hot and blinding. Why now? I choke out. Grayson sighs. I'm dying. Cancer. I couldn't take this to my grave. I leave the diner in a daze, the folder clutched to my chest, my mind racing. That envelope I found months ago, the true heir. It was this. Dad knew. Those fights I heard as a kid, Mom screaming about Grandpa's will, it all clicks. I was never the backup. I was the target of his erasure. I don't go back to the house. I call Sarah Kane, a financial journalist I trust from my New York days. I've got a story, I tell her, my voice steel. Meet me. That night, we sit in a hotel room, and I spill everything. Nathan's failures, Dad's manipulation, the real will. I hand her the folder, every damning page. Run it, I say. She nods, no questions asked. The next morning, the headline hits like a bomb. Whitmore Industries, a legacy of lies. Sarah's article lays it bare. Nathan's incompetence, Dad's forgery, my stolen inheritance. My phone blows up. Texts from colleagues, calls from reporters, a furious voicemail from Nathan. You bitch! You've ruined us! I don't care. I go back to the house, storm into Dad's study again. He's standing this time, red-faced, the article open on his desk. Is it true? I demand, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He doesn't flinch, just nods once, cold as ever. I did it for the family, he says, like that justifies it. For Nathan, I snap. You let him destroy everything, then used me to clean it up, all while hiding this? I throw the will at him, pages fluttering to the floor. You're a liar! He steps closer, his jaw tight. You wouldn't have handled it, Lena. You're not built for this. I laugh, bitter and loud. I just saved your ass, Dad. I'm built for more than you'll ever know. I turn to leave, but his voice stops me. You'll regret this. I look back, meeting his glare. No, you will. I walk out, my heart pounding, the weight of the truth sinking in. I've just set fire to everything I thought I knew, and there's no going back. I'm still shaking from the confrontation when I get back to the hotel, the echoes of Dad's voice. I did it for the family, ringing in my ears like a sick joke. I pace the room, the folder with Grandpa's will lying open on the bed, my name staring up at me like a ghost. The article's out there now, tearing through the financial world like wildfire. My phone's a war zone, reporters begging for quotes, old colleagues offering support, Nathan's voicemail spitting venom. You bitch, you've ruined us! I don't reply. I don't sleep either. I just sit there replaying Dad's admission, his cold, unapologetic nod. He stole my future because he didn't think I was built for it. And Nathan? He's always been the golden boy, even when he's a walking disaster. The next day, I go back to the house. I don't know why. Maybe I need to see their faces one more time to make sure I'm not dreaming this nightmare. Dad's in the study, standing by the window, his shoulders hunched like the weight of the truth is finally hitting him. Nathan's there too, pacing, his face red and sweaty, a half-empty beer bottle in his hand. Mom's in the corner, her knitting needles still, her eyes darting between us like she's waiting for a bomb to go off. It does. Hit. You happy now? Nathan snarls, slamming the bottle on the desk. You've tanked everything! You're a fucking traitor! I don't flinch. Traitor? I shoot back, my voice steady despite the fury boiling inside. You ran the company into the ground, Nathan. I saved it. And Dad... I turn to him. You let him, then screwed me out of what's mine. Dad steps forward, his jaw tight. Enough! I told you, Lena. I did what was best. Nathan's the future of this family. I laugh, a raw, bitter sound that surprises even me. The future? He's a drunk who can't tie his own shoes without screwing it up. You chose him because he's a man, not because he's worth a damn. Nathan lunges, his fist raised, but I step aside and he stumbles into the desk, cursing. Mom gasps, Nathan, stop! But Dad just watches, his face a mask. You don't get it, he says, his voice low. This company was built for a Whitmore son. It was built for me, I snap, pointing at the will on the floor. Grandpa saw it. You didn't. That's when it hits me, the choice staring me in the face. I could fight for it. I've got the will, the proof. I could sue, drag them through court, take back Whitmore Industries, the empire that's legally mine. Part of me wants to shove it in their faces, make them choke on their lies. I could rebuild it, run it better than Nathan ever dreamed. But then I look at Dad, his cold eyes, his unyielding pride, and Nathan, a mess of rage and entitlement. I see the chains, the endless battles, the family poison I'd have to swim in to claim what's mine. And I realize I don't want it. Not like this. Not with them. I'm done, I say, the words cutting through the silence. Dad blinks like he doesn't believe me. What? I'm done, I repeat, louder. You want this company so bad for Nathan? Fine, keep it. I'm not your pawn anymore. I turn to leave, but Nathan grabs my arm, his grip sloppy and desperate. You can't just walk away. You owe us. I wrench free, staring him down. I owe you nothing. I gave you 8 months of my life to fix your screw-ups. That's more than you deserve. Dad steps in, his voice sharp. Lena, think about this. If you walk out, you're throwing away everything. I meet his gaze, unflinching. No, Dad, I'm taking everything that matters. I leave the house, the door slamming behind me, my heart pounding but lighter than it's been in years. The fallout comes fast. Sarah's article keeps spreading, and by noon, the news hits. Investors are bailing. Stock prices plummet, 30% in a day, then 55%. Suppliers cut ties, creditors demand payment. Whitmore Industries is hemorrhaging, and there's no one left to stop it. I watch it unfold from my hotel room, flipping through headlines on my laptop. Whitmore Empire on the brink. Family feud sinks legacy. Nathan's probably scrambling, making calls he's too drunk to handle. Dad's probably furious, barking orders no one's left to follow. I don't care. They made this bed. Let them lie in it. Then my phone buzzes, a fraud alert from my bank. Suspicious activity detected. My pulse spikes as I call them. Someone tried to access your accounts, the rep says. Multiple attempts to reroute funds. We've locked it down. I know it's Dad. He's got old authorization codes from when I worked for the company. He's desperate enough to steal from me now. I change every password, add 2-factor authentication, freeze everything he might touch. Then I text Nathan. Tell Dad if he tries to touch my money again, I'll press charges. I'm not bluffing. He doesn't reply. I don't expect him to. He's a coward, always has been. A week later, Mom calls. I almost don't answer, but I do. Her voice is trembling, broken. Lena, it's your father. He collapsed, his heart. They don't know if he'll make it. I freeze, the phone heavy in my hand. I should feel something. Grief, panic, anything. But there's just this numb ache. Are you coming? She asks, her sob catching in her throat. I close my eyes, picturing Dad on a hospital bed, Nathan hovering uselessly, the company crumbling around them. No, Mom, I say finally. Keep me posted. She whispers. I thought you'd say that, and hangs up. I sit there staring at the wall, wondering if I'm a monster for feeling nothing, but I'm not. They burned that bridge long ago. By Friday, Whitmore Industries is done. The board calls an emergency meeting, votes to liquidate. Nathan's out of his depth. Dad's too weak to fight. I send one last message to Nathan because I know he'll show Dad. I don't owe you anything. Not the company, not my life. You're on your own now. Come. I hit send, block their numbers, and shut my laptop. The fire's burned out, and all that's left is ashes. I'm free. Not because I won, but because I walked away. I stand barefoot on the wooden deck of my new house. A small place nestled along the Maine coast, the salty wind tugging at my hair. It's been a week since I signed the deed. Paid in full. No loans, no strings. The ocean stretches out before me, waves crashing in a steady rhythm that drowns out the noise of the past. I cradle a glass of Merlot, the deep red catching the last light of the sunset. This is mine, my sanctuary, far from Boston's wreckage and New York's grind. No towering glass offices, no family ghosts, just me, the sea, and a quiet I've never known. Freedom tastes like this. Crisp air, warm wine, the weight of expectations gone. I left them behind. Dad, Nathan, the company that was never truly theirs. Whitmore Industries is dead now. The news broke last Monday. Stocks hit zero, suppliers walked, the board liquidated what was left. Nathan vanished, probably drowning in debt or booze. Dad lingered in the hospital, too weak to save his empire. I saw it coming. Those cracks were there long before I stepped in. But it's not my mess anymore. My phone buzzes on the railing, an unknown number flashing. I don't need to guess. It's them. Maybe Mom, pleading one last time. Maybe Nathan, bitter and broken. Maybe even Dad, clinging to whatever control he thinks he's got left. I let it ring, watching the screen glow against the dusk. A week ago, Mom called about his collapse. I said no then, and I mean it now. I hit block, set the phone down, and take a slow sip of wine. They don't get to pull me back, not after the lies, the theft, the years of being their fix-it girl. I'm done. The headlines say it all. Whitmore legacy ends in ruin. I don't read them anymore. I know how it ends. Nathan flailing, Dad fading, everything they built slipping through their fingers. A text came from Nathan before I blocked him. You got what you wanted. I didn't reply, but I thought it. No, Nathan. I got what I deserved. Not revenge, not the company I could have claimed. Just peace. I won't lie. Part of me wondered if Dad ever got it. If he saw what he lost by betting on the wrong kid. But that's his burden now, not mine. I lean against the railing, the horizon swallowing the sun. The waves keep rolling, steady and unbothered, like me. I don't need their approval, their name, their stolen legacy. I chose myself, cut the ties, walked away, built this life on my terms. The wine warms my chest as I breathe in the salt and freedom. This is victory, not power or proof, but quiet. I'm free, and that's enough.
I sat in the stillness of my apartment the night before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My phone rang, slicing through the quiet. It was Richard, my fiancé. Hello? Richard, is everything okay? I asked, sensing something off in his voice. Elena, I can't marry you, Richard said, his voice devoid of the warmth I knew. A cold wave of shock washed over me. What do you mean? This isn't funny, Richard. It's not a joke, Elena. I'm already married, to someone else. His words were like a dagger to my heart. Married? But we're getting married tomorrow. How could you do this? I struggled to keep my voice steady. I just can't be with someone who overshadows me. You're a top executive, and I'm not. It's too much for me. His tone was emotionless. So this was about his ego. You knew about my job. For 2 years you said nothing, and now this? I need someone simpler, someone who doesn't outdo me. The mix of hurt and disbelief inside me was boiling into anger. And you decide this now, the night before our wedding? Who is she, Richard? It doesn't matter. I've made my choice. You coward, I hissed, anger surging. You let me plan our life together, and now you're backing out like this. I'm sorry, Elena. It is what it is. You're not sorry. You're a coward. I'm glad I know your true colors before it's too late. There was a pause. You'll regret this, Elena. You need me. I don't need a man who doesn't respect me. Goodbye, Richard. I ended the call, my hand shaking with a mix of rage and shock. Sitting alone, the magnitude of the conversation hit me. The man I thought I knew was nothing but a lie. But amidst the hurt, I felt a surprising relief. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. My chance to rebuild my life without Richard's deceitful shadow. My heart hardened with determination. Richard had wounded me deeply, but I wouldn't let him get away with it. He would regret crossing me. I would make sure of that. I lay awake that night, the darkness of my bedroom mirroring the turmoil in my mind. How had I not seen Richard's true colors? Our relationship, once a source of joy, now felt like a well-crafted facade. The painful realization stung. I thought back to how it all started. My uncle, a well-respected businessman, had introduced me to Richard. He's a promising sales manager, he had said. You two might hit it off. I was reluctant, but I agreed to meet Richard out of respect for my uncle. Our first meeting was at a quiet cafe. Richard was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my career as a marketing executive. We clicked instantly. I thought I had found someone who understood and respected my ambitions. But as I lay there, replaying our conversations, the signs were clear. Richard's subtle digs at my achievements, his veiled comments about women in leadership, they were all red flags I had ignored. He was never proud of me. He was intimidated by me. I remembered the times he'd belittle my work. "It's just marketing, Elena. It's not like you're saving lives," he'd scoff. His words, once brushed off as harmless jokes, now echoed in my mind as clear indicators of his resentment. It dawned on me that his recent behavior, the late nights, the sudden business trips, it wasn't just work. He was seeing someone else. The pieces fell into place, forming a picture of betrayal. I got out of bed, my mind racing with anger and hurt. Richard had humiliated me, but I wasn't going to let him have the last word. He had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. I opened my laptop and began to draft an email to my colleagues. Richard and I had invited them to our wedding, and they deserved to know the truth. I wrote with a clear purpose, detailing Richard's betrayal without sounding bitter. I wanted the facts to speak for themselves. As I hit send, a sense of empowerment washed over me. This was just the beginning. Richard had tried to break me, but instead he had awakened a strength I never knew I had. I would make him regret ever taking me for granted. The game had just begun. The next morning I woke up to a flurry of messages. Colleagues, friends, family, everyone was shocked. The news of Richard's deceit had spread like wildfire. There was an outpouring of support for me, but among these, one message caught my eye. It was from Richard. "Can we meet?" "I think there's been a misunderstanding," his message read. Misunderstanding? The audacity of that word made my blood boil. I agreed to meet him, not for reconciliation, but to confront him, to face the man who had tried to break me. We met at a park, a neutral ground away from prying eyes. Richard was there, looking disheveled, a stark contrast to the composed man I once knew. "Elena, thank you for meeting me. I think you got it all wrong," he started, but I cut him off. "Save it, Richard. There's nothing you can say to justify your actions. You're a liar and a cheat. What did you expect, calling off our wedding and admitting you're already married?" Richard's face reddened. "I didn't expect you to react this way. You're blowing this out of proportion." "Out of proportion? You were living a double life, Richard. What did you expect me to do? Smile and wish you a happy marriage?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I know I messed up, but can't we put this behind us? I mean, we were good together, weren't we?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Put this behind us? You humiliated me, Richard, and now you expect me to just forget it?" "Elena, please, I know I've made a mistake, but I need you. My job is at risk because of this mess. You have connections. You can help me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want my help? After everything you've done?" He took a step closer. "Elena, we can sort this out. I know people are talking, but we can fix this. Together." I stepped back, my resolve hardening. "The only thing that needs fixing is your moral compass, Richard. We are done. And as for your job, you should have thought about that before you betrayed me." I turned and walked away, leaving Richard standing there, a picture of desperation. I felt a surge of strength within me. Richard thought he could manipulate me, but he was wrong. I was not the same person he had toyed with. The game had changed, and I was now the one in control. The days following my confrontation with Richard were a whirlwind. My mind was constantly racing, not with sadness but with a burning desire for retribution. Richard had tried to crush me, but he had only fueled my determination. I started by reaching out to a few trusted colleagues and friends, laying the groundwork for my plan. Word of mouth was powerful, and I intended to use it to expose Richard's true character. I shared my story not as a victim, but as a survivor of deceit. My narrative was factual, yet poignant, a tale of betrayal by a man who was a master of manipulation. Then came the opportunity I was waiting for. An industry event was coming up, one Richard and I were supposed to attend together. I decided to go alone, knowing well that Richard would be there. The evening of the event, I walked into the room with confidence. I could feel the eyes on me, the whispered conversations. I spotted Richard in the crowd, his face a mask of unease. As I mingled, I overheard snippets of conversation. "That's Elena. Can you believe what Richard did to her?" The word was spreading, just as I had planned. Then, Richard approached me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. "Elena, we need to talk. You're ruining me." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not doing anything, Richard. If your reputation is ruined, you have only yourself to blame." He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making me the villain." I pulled my arm away. "I don't need to make you a villain, Richard. You did that all by yourself." As I walked away, I could feel Richard's eyes burning into my back, but I didn't care. I was no longer the woman he thought he could control. The event was a success. By the end of the night, Richard's deceit was the talk of the town. His professional reputation was crumbling, just as he had tried to shatter mine. But this was just the beginning. I knew Richard would not go down without a fight. I needed to be ready for whatever he had planned. My resolve was firm. I would not back down. This was my battle, and I was determined to win. A few days after the industry event, I was at my office when my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was Richard. Against my better judgment, I answered, curiosity getting the better of me. "Elena, you need to stop this madness." Richard's voice was laced with frustration. "This isn't my doing, Richard. It's the consequence of your actions," I replied coolly. "You're destroying my career. I've lost clients, friends." His voice trailed off into a mix of anger and desperation. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to betray me and lie to everyone," I retorted. "I need your help, Elena. You have the power to fix this, to clear my name," he pleaded. "Help you? After everything you've done? You must be delusional." I couldn't hide the contempt in my voice. "Elena, please, we were good together once. Can't you remember that?" There was a hint of something in his voice that sounded almost like sincerity. "All I remember is a liar who was leading a double life," I snapped back. There was a pause on the line, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was colder, more calculating. "You'll regret this, Elena. If I go down, I'll make sure you come down with me." A chill ran down my spine at his threat, but I refused to show my fear. "Is that a threat, Richard?" "It's a promise," he said, his voice now a menacing whisper. "Good luck with that," I said, and ended the call. As I sat back in my chair, I realized that this was far from over. Richard's threat loomed over me, but I was not about to let him intimidate me. I had come too far to back down now. I started to document everything, the calls, messages, any interaction with Richard. If he was planning to come after me, I would be ready. But as I delved deeper into my preparations, I found an unexpected ally. One of Richard's colleagues reached out to me, offering information about Richard's past misdemeanors at work. Instances of credit stealing, manipulation, even harassment. It was more than I could have hoped for. Armed with this new information, I knew what I had to do. It was time to take the fight to Richard. I was going to expose him for who he truly was, not just to our social circle, but to his professional world as well. Richard had started this war, but I was going to finish it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With the information provided by Richard's colleague, I meticulously compiled a dossier of his professional misconduct. It was a damning portrait of a man who had built his career on deceit and manipulation. I reached out to Richard's company's HR department, presenting them with the evidence. The response was swift and decisive. Richard was suspended pending a full investigation. The news spread quickly, and soon Richard's professional reputation was in tatters. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last card to play. I filed a legal claim against Richard for emotional distress and the financial losses incurred due to the canceled wedding. It was a bold move, but I was determined to hold him accountable. As I walked out of my lawyer's office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had stood up to Richard, and I had won. But it was a hollow victory. The man I had once loved was now nothing but a bitter memory. In the midst of all this, my uncle reached out to me. "Elena, you've handled this situation with incredible strength and grace," he said. I shrugged. I did what I had to do. "There's something I want to discuss with you," he continued. "I've been thinking about retirement, and I believe you're the perfect person to take over the business." I was taken aback. "Me? But, Uncle, there are others far more qualified." "You have a keen mind for business, Elena. You've shown that time and again. I can't think of anyone better to lead the company into the future," he insisted. I was hesitant at first, but as we talked, the idea began to take root. This was my chance to step out of Richard's shadow and make a name for myself. "I'll do it," I finally said. "I'll take over the business." My uncle smiled. I knew you would. I have every confidence in you. As I left my uncle's office, I felt a sense of purpose and excitement for the first time in months. I was going to lead my uncle's company, and I was going to make it my own. Richard had tried to break me, but he had only made me stronger. I was no longer the woman he had betrayed. I was a leader, a fighter, and a survivor. As I looked ahead to the future, I knew there were challenges ahead, but I was ready for them. I had emerged from this ordeal stronger and more determined than ever. Richard's betrayal had been the catalyst for my transformation. I had lost a fiancé, but I had found myself. And that was worth more than any wedding could ever be. As I sat at the elegantly set Thanksgiving dinner table in my parents' house, surrounded by the comforting familiarity of my childhood home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. At 60, these visits had become my refuge from the stifling atmosphere of my own home. The lively chatter of my daughter Emma with her grandmother filled the room, a stark contrast to the silence that often enveloped my conversations with Richard, my husband. My phone vibrated sharply, disrupting the warmth of the moment. Richard's name flashed across the screen, sending a shiver down my spine. With a hesitant sigh, I excused myself. "Excuse me, it's Richard. I'll just take this in the kitchen." But as I rose, my fingers slipped and the phone's speaker activated. "Elaine, having fun over there?" "Well, don't bother coming back." Richard's voice, unnaturally cheerful, echoed through the room. I stood frozen, phone in hand, as his words hung in the air. "What are you talking about, Richard?" "Oh, I've decided it's time for a change. I've moved Emma's stuff into the house. There's no room for you anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's fork dropped with a clatter, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Richard, what in the world are you saying?" My voice was barely above a whisper, heart pounding in my chest. "It's simple, really. Emma doesn't want to come home because of you. Without you, she can finally live the life she deserves, like when she was a child. So leave." Emma stood up abruptly, anger flashing in her eyes. "Dad, what are you?" "Stay out of this, Emma." Richard's voice cut through, sharp and cold. "This is between me and your mother." My cheeks burned with a mix of humiliation and anger. "You want me to leave our home? Just like that?" "Yes, and you can go to some shelter or whatever. Doesn't matter to me." The call ended abruptly, leaving a haunting silence. My mother reached out, her hand trembling. "Elaine, honey." But before she could finish, Emma burst into laughter, incredulous and bitter. "He's lost it, Grandma. Completely lost it." Inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions. Humiliation, anger, and a strange sense of liberation. He better be ready, I thought to myself. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. As I lay in my childhood bed that night, the moonlight casting shadows across the room, my mind wandered back through the years, sifting through memories of Richard and me. Our story wasn't always filled with cold silences and bitter words. There was a time when Richard's gaze held warmth, and his touch promised safety. I met Richard when I was in my late 20s. He was charming, confident, and seemed to have an answer for everything. I was captivated by his charisma and how he seemed to take the world in his stride. We married within a year of meeting, a whirlwind romance that felt like a fairy tale. But the fairy tale began to crumble soon after Emma was born. Richard's affection for our daughter was undeniable, yet as his love for her grew, his regard for me seemed to wane. It was as if his heart had room only for one. "Elaine, can't you see you're smothering her?" "Let her breathe," he would chide whenever I tried to be involved in Emma's upbringing. His words stung, but I believed he was just being an overly protective father. As Emma grew, so did Richard's disdain towards me. The man who once looked at me like I was his world now barely acknowledged my existence, except to criticize. "Why can't you be more like Emma? She's only 10 and already so independent," he'd say with a sneer. I remember the night when Emma, at 15, won a school award. We were supposed to celebrate as a family, but Richard turned it into a lecture session. "Elaine, why can't you achieve anything like our daughter? You're just wasting your life away," he said, his words like daggers. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of years of his contempt. It wasn't just the words, it was the dismissive glances, the heavy sighs, the way he'd turn away when I entered a room. I had become a ghost in my own home, invisible and insignificant. But that night, as I lay in the quiet, a resolve began to stir within me. Richard's callousness on the phone, his brazen dismissal of our life together, it had lit a fire in me. I wasn't going to let him erase me from my own story. I turned on my side, closing my eyes, but sleep eluded me. The shadows on the wall seemed to whisper, urging me to stand up, to fight back. And I knew, deep down, that I was ready to do just that. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Over breakfast, Mom tried to discuss Richard's call, but I steered the conversation elsewhere. I wasn't ready to delve into that can of worms, not yet. Emma, sensing my unease, didn't press either. As we cleaned up, my thoughts drifted back to the recent years with Richard. His controlling behavior wasn't just confined to our daughter. It seeped into every aspect of our lives, tightening like a vice around my freedom. "Elaine, I don't want you working late. You need to be home to cook dinner," he would demand, disregarding my career in the library, which I cherished. His rules were arbitrary and ever-changing, designed to keep me off balance. If I wore something he didn't approve of, he would scoff. "Dressing up? Trying to impress someone? You should focus on being a better wife and mother." Even my friendships weren't spared. "You're spending too much time with Linda. She's a bad influence," he declared one day, his words slicing through years of friendship like a knife. But it wasn't just the control. It was the humiliation. At social gatherings, he would belittle me with backhanded compliments, often in front of Emma. "Elaine tries her best, but you know, she's not the brightest bulb," he'd say with a laugh that made my skin crawl. Emma saw it all. At first, she tried to defend me, but Richard's influence was too strong. "Mom, just ignore him," she would whisper, a look of helplessness in her eyes. I remember the day Emma left for college. Richard was beaming with pride, but there was a coldness in his eyes when he turned to me. "See, Elaine, this is what happens when you raise a child right. She's not like you, thank God." That stung more than anything. The implication that I had no part in our daughter's upbringing, that my years of love and sacrifice meant nothing. As these memories churned in my mind, a simmering anger began to bubble to the surface. No more. I wouldn't let Richard dictate my life, not anymore. The phone call was the last straw. It was time for Richard to face the consequences of his actions. I looked at Emma, her face a mirror of my resolve. "Emma, there's something I need to do when we get back. It's going to change everything, but I need you to trust me." Emma nodded, determination in her eyes. "I'm with you, Mom, all the way." The drive back home was filled with a tense silence. Emma and I were both lost in our thoughts as the weight of the impending confrontation with Richard hanging heavy in the air. Once home, I retreated to my room, ostensibly to unpack, but really to make a call that would set everything in motion. I dialed the number of a divorce attorney I had discreetly noted down a few months ago. My hands trembled as I heard the line connect. "Hello, this is Elaine Richardson. I need to discuss a divorce." The lawyer, Mr. Adams, was calm and reassuring. "I understand this is a difficult time, Mrs. Richardson. We can help you navigate through this process." As I detailed Richard's behavior over the years, Mr. Adams listened intently. "We can file for divorce on grounds of emotional abuse. It seems you have a strong case." Feeling a sense of empowerment, I replied, "I want to go through with this, and I want him to pay for what he's done, not just legally, but financially too." Mr. Adams assured me, "We will do everything we can to ensure you receive what you're entitled to." After the call, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. For the first time in years, I was taking control of my life. Later that evening, Richard returned home, his demeanor smug and triumphant. "So, you're back. Realized you have nowhere else to go?" His words cut deep, but I held my ground. "I went to my parents' house, Richard. Remember the place you practically banished me to?" He scoffed. "I did us a favor. Emma and I are better off without you." "That's where you're wrong," I said, my voice steady. "Emma is not a pawn in your twisted game, and I am not your prisoner anymore." Richard's face contorted in anger. "What are you blabbering about? You think you can survive without me?" I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "Watch me." Emma entered the room, her expression one of quiet strength. "Dad, you've gone too far. Mom doesn't deserve this." Richard sneered. "Oh, now you're taking her side? I thought you understood, Emma. Your mother is useless." Emma's eyes blazed with anger. "No, Dad. The only useless thing here is your cruelty. We're done living under your shadow." As we stood there, united against Richard's scorn, I knew we had crossed a point of no return. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight for my freedom. The morning after our declaration, the house felt like a battlefield. Richard's usual air of arrogance was more pronounced, as if he was daring us to challenge him. As I made breakfast, my hands shook slightly, but my resolve was firm. At the table, Richard broke the silence with his typical condescension. "So, Elaine, have you finally realized your place? Ready to beg for forgiveness?" I kept my voice calm. "There's nothing to beg for, Richard. I'm not the one who should be apologizing." He laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "You've always been delusional, but this is a new low, even for you." Emma, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Dad, this isn't a joke. We're serious. Mom is filing for divorce." The look on Richard's face was one I had never seen before. Confusion, disbelief, and then anger. "Divorce? You think you can just walk away from me, after everything I've done for this family?" "It's precisely because of what you've done," I said, my voice rising. "Years of belittling, controlling, and humiliating me. I won't stand for it anymore." Richard slammed his fist on the table, his face red. "I made this family. Without me, you're nothing." Emma stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You didn't make this family, Dad. You tore it apart. And Mom is more than something. She's everything you're not." His gaze shifted between us, a wild look in his eyes. "You're teaming up against me, your own husband, your own father?" "This isn't about sides, Richard. It's about right and wrong," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "And what you've done is unforgivably wrong." Richard's laughter was bitter. "You think you can just leave and everything will be fine? You have no idea what you're in for." I met his gaze squarely. "I know exactly what I'm in for. Freedom from you." Emma moved to stand beside me, a united front. "We're done being under your control, Dad. It's over." Richard stood abruptly, his chair toppling behind him. "You'll regret this. Both of you. You don't know what I'm capable of." As he stormed out of the room, the tension he left behind was suffocating. But amidst that tension, there was also a sense of liberation. The battle had begun, and I was ready to fight for my freedom, my dignity, and my daughter's future. The days following our confrontation with Richard were a whirlwind of activity. I met with Mr. Adams several times, laying out the groundwork for the divorce. He was meticulous, ensuring every detail was accounted for. "We'll make sure you get what you deserve, Elaine, both financially and legally," he assured me. Richard's reaction to the divorce papers was volcanic. He stormed into the house one evening, papers in hand, his face a mask of fury. "You're actually going through with this? Do you have any idea what you're doing, Elaine?" I faced him with a calm I didn't feel. "Yes, Richard, I do. For the first time in years, I'm making a decision for myself." He laughed mockingly. "You think you can survive without me? You're nothing without my money, my support." "I'm not afraid of being on my own, Richard. I'm more afraid of spending another day under the same roof as you," I replied, my voice steady. Emma, hearing the commotion, came downstairs. "What's going on?" "Your mother has lost her mind. That's what's going on," Richard spat out. "She thinks she can just take half of everything I've worked for. It's not just what you've worked for, Dad. It's what Mom has endured for all these years. She deserves every penny and more." Emma countered. Richard's eyes narrowed. "Don't be foolish, Emma. This will ruin us all." "No, Dad. It will free us, especially Mom." As the days turned into weeks, the house became a cold war zone. Richard moved into the guest room, his presence like a dark cloud. Despite his attempts to sway me, my decision was final. The day of the first court hearing arrived. As I sat in the courtroom, waiting for the proceedings to start, I felt an odd sense of serenity. I was doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for Emma as well. Richard, on the other hand, was a bundle of nerves. When his lawyer talked about a settlement, I couldn't help but smile. Richard, who always prided himself on his control, was now at the mercy of the court. As the judge reviewed our case, Richard's face grew paler. When the judge turned to me and asked if I had anything to add, I took a deep breath. "Your Honor, for years I endured emotional abuse and manipulation at the hands of my husband. I'm not seeking revenge, I'm seeking justice, for myself and for my daughter." The judge nodded, his expression solemn. "I understand, Mrs. Richardson. This court will ensure fair judgment is passed." As we left the courtroom, Richard's defeated look was all I needed to see. The battle wasn't over, but I had won the first round, and I was ready for whatever came next. In the weeks that followed, my life felt like it was under a microscope, scrutinized by lawyers in the court. But with each passing day, I felt stronger, more in control of my destiny. Richard's attempts to intimidate me became more desperate and less effective. The final court hearing was a day I had both dreaded and longed for. As Richard and I sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, I couldn't help but reflect on the man I once loved, now a stranger filled with bitterness. The judge's voice was firm as he delivered the verdict. The court finds in favor of Mrs. Richardson. Mr. Richardson, you are required to pay alimony and half of your assets. Richard's face was a picture of shock and rage. He stood up abruptly, his chair clattering to the floor. This is ridiculous. She doesn't deserve a penny. Mr. Richardson, control yourself, the judge admonished. The court has made its decision. As we left the courtroom, Richard's parting words were venomous. You'll regret this, Elaine. You think you've won, but you haven't seen the end of me. But I no longer feared him. His words, once so cutting, now seemed empty and powerless. In the months that followed, I found a small apartment close to Emma's place. I started a new job at a local library, a place that had always brought me peace. The alimony from Richard allowed me financial freedom I hadn't experienced in years. Emma and I grew closer, our relationship no longer overshadowed by Richard's presence. She was thriving in her career and personal life, a stark contrast to the frightened young woman she had been. As for Richard, the last I heard, he was living a diminished life, his pride and finances greatly reduced. His attempts to reach out to Emma and me were met with silence. The man who once held so much power over us was now just a memory, a shadow of the past. I often sit on my balcony, a cup of tea in hand, looking out at the peaceful neighborhood. I've found a sense of tranquility and purpose that was missing for so long. The journey was painful, filled with struggles and heartaches, but it led me to a place of peace. Emma visits often, and we talk about everything and nothing. Our bond, forged in adversity, is now unbreakable. As I look towards the future, I do so with hope and a sense of freedom. I've emerged from the shadows of my past stronger and more resilient. I've learned that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest triumphs. And as for Richard, he is nothing more than a distant echo, a reminder of a life I once lived and the strength I gained in leaving it behind. The new year always brought a sense of fresh beginnings, but this time it arrived with an unsettling surprise. My doorbell rang, piercing the quiet of my small, cozy home. Expecting maybe a neighbor or a late courier, I casually swung the door open. My heart plummeted into my stomach. There, on my doorstep, stood two figures from my past I never wished to see again, my sister Claire and my ex-husband Ethan. Claire, with her ever-present smug smile, looked almost triumphant standing next to Ethan. Ethan's presence was like a reopened wound, his expression a mix of arrogance and false pity. 3 years had passed since I last saw them, and here they were, as if they'd never shattered my world. "Why are you here?" My voice was a shaky whisper, betraying my shock. Claire's laughter was like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, look, Ethan, she's speechless. What's wrong, Anna? Not happy to see your dear sister and loving ex-husband?" Ethan leaned against the doorframe, his gaze scanning the room behind me. "Yeah, Anna, we just thought we'd pay a visit, see how the old place is holding up without us." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to slam the door in their faces. "This is no longer your place, Ethan, and you, Claire, have no business here either." Their smirks only widened at my attempt to stand ground. Ethan's next words were like a slap. "You know, Anna, I really regret ever tying myself to you. What a waste of my best years." Claire chimed in, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Poor Anna, always the underachiever, even in marriage. Their cruel words stung, but before I could muster a response, a voice from behind startled us all. "Who's at the door, Anna?" It was my father, George, whom I wasn't expecting until later that evening. His unexpected presence threw Claire and Ethan off balance. The smirks faded from their faces as they awkwardly shifted their stance. "Dad, you're back early," I managed to say, my voice laced with relief. George's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him. "Claire? Ethan? What in the world are you two doing here?" Their composure crumbled, the confident facade melting away under my father's stern gaze. For a moment there was silence, a tense air hanging between us. It was broken only by Claire's hesitant voice. We just wanted to wish Anna a happy new year." George's disbelief was palpable. "Really? After years of silence, you suddenly remember family ties on New Year's Day?" His tone was icy, hinting at unspoken anger and disappointment. Ethan cleared his throat, attempting to regain his composure. "Well, we also had some news to share, but maybe this isn't the right time." I knew there was more to their visit than just New Year's greetings. Their unexpected arrival, the smug looks, the veiled insults, it was all too familiar. The same old pattern of deceit and manipulation. But this time, I wasn't the same person they had left behind. As they awkwardly excused themselves, promising to return another time, I closed the door with a mixture of relief and dread. Their return could mean only one thing: trouble was brewing once again. And this time, I had to be ready. After Claire and Ethan left, the house felt oppressively silent. My father, George, sat across from me, his brow furrowed in concern. "Anna, what was that all about? Why are they back?" I sighed, feeling the weight of years of suppressed memories. "I don't know, Dad, but with Claire and Ethan, it's never without a reason." George nodded, his expression darkening. "I remember how things ended, how they betrayed you. You don't owe them anything, Anna." I appreciated his support, but there was a part of the story that even he didn't fully understand, the depth of Claire's manipulation and deceit. It went back to our childhood, a time that should have been filled with innocent memories but was instead marked by Claire's selfishness. "Dad, do you remember my 10th birthday? The porcelain doll Grandma gave me?" I asked, my voice tinged with sadness. George's face softened. "Of course, you loved that doll." I nodded, the memory vivid in my mind. "Claire broke it on purpose, but she cried and told Mom it was an accident, that I was the one who knocked it over." George looked surprised. "I never knew that. Your mother always said it was an accident." "That was just the beginning," I continued, the old wounds reopening. "She always played the innocent, and I was the one who got blamed. She knew exactly how to manipulate everyone around her." I could see the regret in George's eyes, the realization of what he hadn't seen all those years. "I'm sorry, Anna. I should have seen through it. It's not your fault, Dad. We were all fooled by Claire's act." I paused, taking a deep breath. "Even with Ethan, she played us both. They deserve each other." George reached across, taking my hand in a firm, comforting grip. "What matters is that you're free from their toxicity now. Don't let them drag you back into their drama." I nodded, trying to muster a smile. The conversation with my father made it clear that the past wasn't as buried as I had hoped. Claire and Ethan's return wasn't just a simple visit. It was a harbinger of more turmoil to come. That night, sleep eluded me. The memories of Claire's manipulations, the way she had always outshone me in our parents' eyes, the way she'd effortlessly charmed Ethan away from me. It all swirled in my mind. Her return meant she was up to something, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread about what was to come. But amidst the turmoil of thoughts, a determined resolve began to form. I wouldn't be the passive victim this time. I would stand up to Claire and Ethan, whatever their game was. This time, I was ready to fight back. In the days following Claire and Ethan's visit, their words and smirks haunted me. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself, but the past refused to stay buried. The memory of my marriage to Ethan, once filled with love and promise, now felt like a thorny path I had been forced to tread barefoot. It started beautifully. Ethan was charming, attentive, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We were happy, or so I believed. But then came the subtle changes, the late nights, the unexplained absences, the evasive answers. I trusted him, ignoring the nagging doubts and the whispers of intuition. Then, one evening, the veil lifted. I returned home early from a business trip, the anticipation of surprising Ethan tingling in my heart. But the surprise was mine. I found Ethan and Claire together, their laughter echoing in our living room, a scene that shattered my world. The confrontation that followed was a blur of tears, accusations, and bitter truths. Claire, with her characteristic lack of remorse, simply shrugged, her words slicing through me. "You were always too busy with your little job, Anna. Ethan needed someone, and I was there. It's not our fault you couldn't keep your husband's interest." Ethan's justification was equally cold. I thought I loved you, Anna, but Claire, she's different. Exciting. You and I were never right for each other. Their betrayal was a double-edged sword, cutting deep into my heart and my trust. The divorce that followed was quick, Ethan and Claire making no secret of their relationship. I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken life, feeling foolish and betrayed. Now, as I sat in my office, the memories gnawing at my mind, anger bubbled inside me. How dare they waltz back into my life after what they did? How dare they think they could just disrupt my peace again? But it was more than anger. It was a burning desire for retribution. I wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they had caused me. The idea of revenge, once foreign and distasteful, now seemed like the only way to close this painful chapter of my life. I made a decision I would confront them, demand answers. But this time I wouldn't be the blindsided, heartbroken wife. I would be strong, unyielding. They had underestimated me once. They wouldn't make the same mistake again. I picked up my phone and dialed Ethan's number. My voice was steady, my resolve firm. Ethan, we need to talk. Meet me at the cafe on 5th Street. Tomorrow, noon. His surprised stammer was a small victory, but it was enough. Sure, Anna, tomorrow then. The call ended, and for the first time in days I felt a sense of control. The game had begun, and this time I was playing to win. The cafe was bustling with the midday crowd when I arrived. I spotted Ethan seated at a corner table, his posture tense. As I approached, his attempt at a casual smile didn't reach his eyes. Anna, thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, he started, his voice laced with feigned concern. I don't, I replied sharply, taking a seat across from him. But I need answers. Why are you and Claire back in my life? Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Look, Anna, things haven't been great for us. After we left, we had some tough times. I felt a bitter satisfaction seeing him uneasy. Tough times? You expect sympathy from me? No, of course not, he stammered. It's just that Claire is pregnant. We thought it's time to mend fences, for the sake of family. His words hit me like a cold wave. Claire, pregnant? A part of me felt a pang of hurt, but it was quickly overshadowed by skepticism. And you think I would? What? Welcome you with open arms? I asked, my voice laced with disbelief. It's not just that, Ethan said, avoiding my gaze. There's the matter of the inheritance, your father's estate. So there it was, the true reason behind their sudden reappearance. It wasn't guilt or a desire for reconciliation. It was greed. You have some nerve, Ethan. You cheat, you leave, and now you come back for money? I felt my anger rising, my voice growing louder despite the public setting. People can change, Anna. We've been through a lot. We just want a chance to start over, to be a family, he pleaded. A family built on lies and deceit, I retorted, my heart racing with anger. Just then my phone vibrated. It was a message from Claire. We need to talk. Alone, my place, tonight. I looked up at Ethan, my decision made. Tell Claire I'll see her tonight. But make no mistake, Ethan, this isn't a family reunion. This is me settling the score. Ethan's face fell, a mixture of surprise and concern etching his features. As I stood up to leave, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. For too long, I had been the victim of their selfish actions. But now the tables were turning. I walked out of the cafe, leaving Ethan behind, my mind racing with possibilities. Tonight's meeting with Claire would be more than just a confrontation. It would be the beginning of my revenge, a chance to reclaim my dignity, and make them regret ever crossing me. After leaving Ethan at the cafe, a mix of emotions swirled within me. Anger, betrayal, but above all, a newfound determination. As I drove home, my mind raced with plans for the evening's confrontation with Claire. I needed to be prepared, to stand my ground against her manipulative tactics. As the evening approached, I stood in front of my mirror, steeling myself. The reflection showed a woman changed by adversity, no longer the naive girl who once fell for Ethan's charm or got overshadowed by Claire's deceit. Tonight I was facing my past, ready to confront and overcome it. Claire's house was a stark contrast to mine, lavish, ostentatious, a testament to her and Ethan's superficial values. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. The door swung open and there she stood, Claire as poised and arrogant as ever. Anna, come in. I'm glad you could make it. Her tone was condescending, as if she was doing me a favor by allowing me into her home. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the extravagant decor. So, Claire, why am I here? What do you want from me? I asked, cutting to the chase. Claire led me to the living room, her movements graceful yet calculated. I wanted to talk to you, sister to sister. It's been too long, and with the baby coming, I thought it's time we bury the hatchet. I almost laughed at her audacity. Bury the hatchet? After you stole my husband and now come back for my father's inheritance? Claire's expression hardened for a moment before she regained her composure. Anna, let's be practical. Ethan and I need financial stability for our child. Your father's estate can help with that. Her blatant greed was repulsive. You expect me to just hand over what's rightfully mine, after everything you've done? It's not just about the money, Anna, Claire said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. It's about family. We're still sisters, after all. I stared at her, incredulous. You lost the right to call me sister the moment you betrayed me. There was a silence, a tension that hung heavily between us. Then Claire's facade cracked, her true nature surfacing. Fine. If you're going to be selfish about it, then let's talk legalities. You know Dad's will favors the first grandchild. My baby will ensure Ethan and I get the inheritance. Her words hit me like a physical blow. This was her game, to use her pregnancy as leverage to manipulate our father's will in her favor. You're unbelievable, Claire. You think you can just manipulate everyone and everything to your liking, but not this time. I won't let you. My voice was firm, unyielding. Claire smirked, a cold, calculating look in her eyes. We'll see, Anna. We'll see how long you can keep up this righteous act. I turned to leave, my mind reeling from Claire's callousness. As I drove away from her house, a plan began to form in my mind. Claire and Ethan were playing a dangerous game, but now I knew the rules. It was time for them to learn that I was no longer the passive player in their twisted game. The days following my encounter with Claire were spent in a state of heightened alertness, preparing for the inevitable legal battle over my father's estate. I sought legal counsel, determined to protect what was rightfully mine and my father's legacy from Claire and Ethan's greedy clutches. As I delved deeper into the legal intricacies, a piece of shocking news reached me. Ethan's business, the one he had started with such bravado, had collapsed. They were drowning in debt, their lavish lifestyle unsustainable. This revelation shed new light on their sudden reappearance and desperation for the inheritance. I met with my lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Miss Harper, to discuss our strategy. They're cornered financially and legally, she said, scanning the documents. Your sister's claim about the will favoring the first grandchild doesn't stand on solid legal ground. We can fight this. Her confidence was reassuring, but I knew Claire and Ethan wouldn't give up easily. They were like cornered animals, unpredictable and dangerous. My resolve was tested sooner than expected. One evening, as I returned home from work, I found Claire waiting on my doorstep, her expression a mix of defiance and desperation. Anna, we need to talk, she said, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. I eyed her warily. I have nothing to say to you, Claire. This matter is now in the hands of lawyers. She stepped forward, blocking my path. Please, Anna, I'm not pregnant. It was a lie, a stupid plan Ethan and I concocted to sway Dad's will in our favor. Her confession, though shocking, didn't surprise me. It was just another deceit in their long list of manipulations. So, all this time you've been lying. What now, Claire? Ready to admit defeat? I asked, my voice cold. Claire's eyes welled up with tears, but they didn't move me. I don't know what to do. Ethan's business is ruined. We're losing everything. I need your help, Anna. Her plea for help after all the pain she had caused was almost laughable. You want my help? After everything you've done? You really are delusional. She grabbed my arm, desperation in her grasp. Please, Anna, I'm your sister. Remember how we used to be before all this? I pulled away, her touch repulsive to me. The sister I knew died the moment you betrayed me. You made your choice, Claire. Now live with it. Leaving Claire standing alone, I entered my house, closing the door on her and our shared past. The sense of finality was liberating. I was no longer bound by the chains of our toxic relationship. That night, as I sat alone in the quiet of my living room, I realized that this was more than just a battle for inheritance. It was a fight for my own liberation, a chance to finally close the chapter on Claire and Ethan's treachery and move on with my life. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and tense negotiations. Claire and Ethan's desperation became more evident as their financial woes escalated. Despite this, I remained steadfast, bolstered by Miss Harper's expertise and my own newfound strength. Then came the day of the decisive court hearing. The courtroom was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the heated emotions simmering beneath the surface. Ethan and Claire sat together, a facade of unity, but the strain was evident in their haggard appearances. As the proceedings began, Miss Harper was methodical and precise, dismantling each of Claire and Ethan's arguments with legal acumen. Claire's lie about her pregnancy was exposed, further weakening their position. I watched Claire as the reality of her situation dawned on her. The confident, manipulative sister I once knew was gone, replaced by a shell of her former self, consumed by the consequences of her actions. During a recess, Claire approached me, a plea in her eyes. "Anna, please. I know I don't deserve your mercy, but we're ruined. We have nothing." Her words, once capable of swaying me, now fell on deaf ears. "You brought this on yourselves, Claire. You chose greed and deceit. Now you must face the results." The final judgment was a resounding victory for me. The judge ruled in my favor, ensuring that the inheritance remained rightfully mine. Claire and Ethan left the courtroom defeated, their schemes reduced to ashes. But as I walked out, a sense of closure filled me. This wasn't just a legal victory. It was a personal triumph over the ghosts of my past. Claire and Ethan's downfall was the karmic justice they deserved. But for me, it was a liberation from the chains of betrayal and hurt. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life, free from the shadows of Claire and Ethan. The wound they left would always be a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and with a clearer understanding of who I was and what I stood for. And so, as I sat in my garden one evening, watching the sunset, I realized that true victory wasn't in revenge or the suffering of those who wronged me. It was in the peace and strength I found within myself, the ability to move forward, and the promise of new beginnings. My name is Alexandra Bennett, and I have been married to Ethan Bennett for 15 long years. Our life, outwardly perfect, was a facade hiding a painful truth. It was a chilly evening in November when my world began to crumble. I returned home early from a friend's art exhibition, anticipating a quiet night with Ethan and our son Nathan. But what I found was the stark opposite. I heard their voices before I saw them, Ethan's and a woman's, hushed, yet passionate. Creeping closer, I heard words that cut through my heart like a serrated knife. "Once she's out of the picture, we'll have it all, Isabel. Just a little longer." Ethan's voice slithered through the air. Isabel, his mistress, laughed, a sound so cold it could freeze blood. I can't wait to see the look on her face when she finds out. You're a genius, Ethan." Their cruel laughter echoed in the hallway, a sinister symphony that shattered my trust. I stood frozen, a statue of disbelief, as their plan to upend my life unfolded with each word. I had known about Ethan's infidelities, his late nights, the scent of foreign perfume, the lipstick stains I pretended not to see, but this was a betrayal of a different caliber. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was plotting against me, our son, our life. Stumbling back, I found myself in Nathan's room. He was my anchor, my 14-year-old, who looked so much like his father, but with a gentleness Ethan never possessed. "Mom, you're home early." Nathan's voice was tinged with surprise. "Is everything okay?" I forced a smile, my heart breaking in silence. "Everything's fine, honey. Just tired, that's all." I couldn't burden him, not yet. Not until I understood the full extent of Ethan's treachery. That night, as I lay in bed next to the man who had just vowed to dismantle my life, a plan began to take shape in my mind. Ethan thought he could discard me like an old toy, but I was not going to be a silent victim in his cruel game. The stakes were high, but I was ready to play. This was not just about me anymore, it was about Nathan, our future, and the justice we deserved. Ethan Bennett was about to learn that every action has its consequences, and I was going to be the one to teach him that lesson. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, was the unexpected ally in a house divided by secrets and lies. Despite her son's despicable nature, Eleanor's affection for me and Nathan had always been genuine, She was the first person I confided in about Ethan's betrayal. In the privacy of her quaint living room, with its floral curtains and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, I found the courage to speak. "Eleanor, Ethan is planning to leave me for another woman. He's been plotting this for a while." Her reaction was a mix of anger and sorrow. "That boy has always been selfish. But this... Alexandra, you and Nathan don't deserve this." Eleanor's empathy was a balm, but it was her next words that sparked a fire within me. "We need to protect you and Nathan. Ethan can't just get away with this." The conversation turned to action. We needed a plan, one that would expose Ethan's true colors and safeguard our future. It was a game of chess, and we were 2 moves away from checkmate. Meanwhile, Nathan's bond with his father was disintegrating. I overheard their conversation one evening, a dialogue laced with disappointment and unspoken accusations. "Why are you never home, Dad? You missed my soccer game again." Nathan's voice was a mix of hurt and accusation. Ethan's response was dismissive, his usual defense mechanism. "Business, Nathan. You'll understand when you're older. Priorities, son." But Nathan was older than his years. "Mom's always there. Are we not your priority, Dad?" The conversation ended with Ethan walking away, a cowardly retreat from a confrontation he couldn't win. Nathan's eyes, so much like his father's, yet filled with a depth Ethan never had, met mine. We didn't need words. Our resolve was unspoken. Eleanor and I continued to weave our web. We gathered evidence, bank statements, photographs, and messages. Every piece was a testament to Ethan's betrayal. Our plan was taking shape, a strategy not just for revenge, but for justice. As I tucked Nathan into bed that night, his innocent face asleep in the moonlit room, my resolve hardened. This was no longer just a battle. It was a war for our dignity, for our future. Ethan Bennett, in his arrogance, had underestimated the strength of the bonds he sought to break. He was about to learn that the ties of kinship were stronger than his web of lies. The morning I decided to confront Ethan was draped in an eerie silence. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, but nothing could prepare me for the reality of it. He was at the kitchen table, his back to me, engrossed in his phone. Without a word, I slid the envelope across the table. It contained the irrefutable evidence of his infidelity, pictures of him with Isabel, receipts from extravagant gifts, and damning messages. Ethan's reaction was a cocktail of shock, denial, and then, disgustingly, amusement. "You've been snooping around, Alexandra? Is this some sort of joke?" His attempt to downplay his betrayal only fueled my resolve. "This is no joke, Ethan. You've been planning to leave me for Isabel. I know everything." For a moment, Ethan's facade cracked, revealing the coward beneath. "Alexandra, let's be reasonable. We can sort this out." "Sort this out?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You want to abandon your family for your mistress, and you think we can sort this out?" The room was thick with tension, a tangible force that seemed to suffocate any remnants of love we once shared. Ethan's next words were the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. "Alexandra, you're overreacting. Isabel understands me in ways you never could. I need someone younger, more vibrant." His words were a slap in the face, a confirmation of every fear and insecurity I had ever felt in our marriage. But they also ignited a fire within me, a fire of defiance and strength. "Vibrant?" I retorted, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Is that what you call betrayal these days?" It was clear then that there was no salvaging our marriage. Ethan had made his choice, and it was not me, not us. I left the room with a newfound determination. I would not be a victim of Ethan Bennett's selfish whims. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Meetings with lawyers, discussions with Eleanor, and late-night planning sessions. We were building a case, not just for divorce, but for justice. And then came the health scare, a routine checkup that turned into a series of tests, the results of which left me reeling. Possible breast cancer? The doctor had said, her voice a blend of professional detachment and sympathy. I was stunned, my mind a chaos of fear and uncertainty. But amidst the turmoil, a plan began to take shape. A plan that would expose Ethan's true nature once and for all. "We'll tell Ethan about the diagnosis," Eleanor suggested during one of our strategy meetings. "Let's see if there's any humanity left in him." It was a gamble, but one we were willing to take. Ethan's reaction to my potential illness would be the ultimate test of his character. It was a test I was almost certain he would fail. The day we decided to reveal my diagnosis to Ethan, the air in the house was thick with anticipation. Eleanor had come over, her presence a source of strength as I prepared to face my husband. Ethan returned home late, as usual, the smell of expensive cologne and deceit clinging to him. Eleanor and I sat in the living room, the envelope containing my medical reports on the coffee table. His eyes flickered with a blend of curiosity and irritation as he walked in. "Alexandra, what's this about?" "You said it was urgent." Ethan's voice held a note of impatience. I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Ethan, I went to the doctor last week. They suspect it might be breast cancer." The words hung in the air, heavy with the gravity of their implication. I watched Ethan closely, searching for a flicker of concern, of love. But what I saw was far more chilling. "Breast cancer? That's unfortunate," Ethan said, his voice devoid of warmth. "But what does this mean for us?" Us. The word echoed mockingly in the room. There was no us, not anymore. Eleanor's gaze was piercing, her disappointment in her son palpable. "It means, Ethan, that your wife needs you now more than ever. She needs your support." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between the envelope and the door. "Right, of course. We'll figure this out. I need some air." And with that, he left, his retreat as cowardly as it was revealing. His reaction, or lack thereof, was all the confirmation we needed. Eleanor's hand found mine, her grip firm. "We know what we have to do, Alexandra." The following weeks were a blur of activity. My condition worsened according to the narrative we fed Ethan. His visits were sporadic, brief, and devoid of any real concern. It was clear that his thoughts were elsewhere, with Isabel, with his escape plan. But Ethan wasn't the only one making plans. Eleanor and I, with the help of my lawyer, were meticulously crafting the trap that would strip Ethan of his power and reveal his true nature to the world. The climax of our plan came one evening when Ethan returned home to find his belongings packed in boxes, his precious possessions stripped from their usual places. "What the hell is this, Alexandra?" Ethan exploded, his composure finally cracking. "It's over, Ethan," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I know about Isabel, about your plans to leave me, and I won't be a silent bystander in your little drama anymore." Ethan's face was a canvas of rage and disbelief. "You can't do this to me. I'm Ethan Bennett. You're nothing without me." But he was wrong. I was Alexandra Bennett, and I was more than he would ever understand. This was my retribution, my stand against the man who had vowed to love and protect me, but had chosen betrayal instead. As Ethan stormed out, his threats and curses echoing through the empty house, I felt a sense of liberation. The facade was gone, and the truth was laid bare. Eleanor stood by my side, her presence a testament to the strength of the bonds that Ethan had tried and failed to sever. "You did well, Alexandra. Now let's see this through to the end." The day of reckoning had arrived. The morning air was crisp and charged with a sense of impending justice as Eleanor and I prepared for the final act of our plan against Ethan. I sat in the lawyer's office, my fingers nervously tapping on the polished mahogany desk. Today we were to confront Ethan with the divorce papers and the full extent of his financial betrayal. The evidence was laid out neatly in folders, each document a testament to his greed and deceit. Eleanor was a rock beside me, her resolve as firm as her disapproval of her son's actions. "He won't see this coming," she whispered, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. The door opened, and Ethan walked in, his usual arrogance replaced with a hint of unease. He glanced at the documents, then at us, his expression one of wary confusion. "What's this about, Alexandra? Why am I here?" Ethan's voice was cautious, a far cry from his usual dismissive tone. I took a deep breath, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "This is about the end, Ethan. The end of our marriage and the end of your lies." Ethan's eyes widened as he flipped through the documents. Bank statements, property deeds, evidence of his financial infidelities, all laid bare for him to see. "This can't be happening," he muttered, his composure slipping. "You can't do this to me." Eleanor leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "You did this to yourself, Ethan. You chose betrayal over your family. Now you face the consequences." The lawyer, a stern woman with an air of unyielding authority, began to outline the terms of the divorce. The division of assets, the alimony, the child support. each point a nail in the coffin of Ethan's grand plans. Ethan's protests grew more desperate, his pleas more pathetic. "You can't leave me with nothing. I'm your husband, Alexandra. We can work this out." But it was too late for negotiations, too late for remorse. "There's nothing left to work out, Ethan. You made your choice. Now, I'm making mine." The meeting ended with Ethan storming out, his threats of revenge and legal battles echoing hollowly in the office. But his words held no power over me anymore. I had seen the man behind the mask, and I was no longer afraid. As we left the lawyer's office, Eleanor's hand found mine, a silent show of solidarity and strength. "You're free, Alexandra. You and Nathan can start anew." And she was right. Despite the turmoil and pain, I felt a sense of liberation, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Ethan Bennett would learn that the price of betrayal was high, and I would be there to ensure he paid it in full. The house felt eerily quiet after Ethan's departure, the silence a stark contrast to the years of deceit and turmoil. But in that stillness, there was a sense of emerging victory. Nathan, now aware of the full extent of his father's betrayal, was a pillar of support. "Mom, we're better off without him," he said one evening as we sat in the living room, a space that once echoed with Ethan's false promises. I nodded, pride swelling in my heart for the young man my son had become. "Yes, Nathan, we are." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Ethan, stripped of his bravado, was a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. His once lavish lifestyle crumbled under the weight of the financial restrictions Eleanor and I had imposed. Then came the day of the final hearing. The courthouse was a monument to justice, its hallowed halls a fitting backdrop for Ethan's downfall. As we entered the courtroom, Ethan's eyes met mine, a mix of anger and desperation in his gaze. But I was no longer the woman he thought he could manipulate and control. The judge, a stern figure of authority, called the court to order. The proceedings were a blur, but each word from the judge was a strike against Ethan's fortress of lies. "You have not only failed in your duties as a husband and father, Mr. Bennett, but you have also squandered your family's resources for selfish gains," the judge said, his voice echoing through the room. Ethan's plea for leniency fell on deaf ears. The evidence of his infidelity and financial misconduct was overwhelming. The judge's verdict was swift and unyielding. "You are hereby ordered to pay substantial alimony and child support. Furthermore, your assets will be divided as per the agreed-upon terms." Ethan's face drained of color, his future as bleak as the judgment being passed. He had lost everything: his family, his reputation, and now his wealth. As we left the courtroom, Nathan's hand in mine, I felt a sense of closure. The legal battle was over, and justice had been served. Ethan's reign of deceit had come to an end, and with it, the chapter of our lives that he had tainted. We stepped out into the sunlight, the world seeming brighter, more hopeful. Nathan looked up at me, a smile on his face. "Mom, we did it. We're free." Yes, we were free. Free from Ethan's lies, free from the shadows of the past. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. Ethan Bennett had learned the hard way that the wheels of justice, though they grind slowly, grind exceedingly fine. The days following the court's decision were a time of reflection and renewal. The house, once a battleground of secrets and lies, now resonated with the promise of a new beginning. Nathan and I spent our days planning for the future, a future unmarred by Ethan's shadow. One afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun filled the living room, Nathan turned to me, his eyes thoughtful. "Mom, do you ever regret it? Marrying Dad, I mean." I paused, considering the weight of the question. "No, Nathan. Despite everything, I don't regret it. Your father gave me the greatest gift, you, and through all this, I've found a strength I never knew I had." Nathan nodded, understanding reflecting in his eyes. "I'm proud of you, Mom. You stood up to him, fought back." "It wasn't just for me, Nathan. It was for us, for our future," I said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. In the weeks that followed, news of Ethan's downfall spread. His reputation, once that of a successful businessman, was now tarnished beyond repair. But our focus was no longer on Ethan's fate. It was on rebuilding our lives. Eleanor remained a constant presence, her support unwavering. "You've both been so strong," she said one day as we shared a quiet lunch. "I'm sorry Ethan couldn't be the man you deserved, Alexandra." Eleanor, you've been more than family to me, I replied, gratitude welling in my heart. You and Harrison have shown us kindness and love more than I could have asked for. As the seasons changed, so did our lives. Nathan excelled in his studies, his resilience shining through, and I found solace in my work, my art, rediscovering passions I had long suppressed under Ethan's shadow. One evening, as Nathan and I sat on the porch watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, I felt a sense of peace. The pain of the past was fading, leaving behind lessons and newfound strength. "Mom, what's next for us?" Nathan asked, his voice filled with hope. "Whatever we want, Nathan. We have a whole world to explore, dreams to chase. We're free to live our lives on our terms," I said, my heart full of optimism. We sat there, mother and son, looking up at the vast expanse of the night sky, our hearts light with the promise of new beginnings. The darkness of the past was behind us, and ahead lay a path illuminated by the light of our courage and love. Ethan Bennett's shadow had been lifted, and in its place was the bright dawn of our new life, a life built on truth, strength, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her son. In the silent, shadowed halls of our home, the laughter of a woman not my own echoed, intertwining with the deep, familiar timbre of Michael's voice. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I stood, frozen, just steps from the bedroom door. My arms instinctively cradled our newborn daughter, a tiny being oblivious to the storm about to break. "Michael, you're choosing to spend time with me. Clearly, I'm far more exciting than Amelia. Plus, I don't do babies. They're just noisy and needy." The woman's voice dripped with contempt. My name, uttered so carelessly, jolted me from my daze. The audacity of this woman, mocking not just me but my child too, ignited a fire in my veins. I pushed the door open, revealing the sordid scene, my husband, Michael, and his mistress, entwined on what used to be our shared bed. The room spun as Michael's eyes met mine, his expression morphing from shock to a cold, calculated calm. "Amelia, why are you back already? Weren't you supposed to be discharged tomorrow?" I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "I messaged you, Michael. Or were you too preoccupied to notice?" My gaze fell on the woman beside him, her smug smile faltering under my stare. Michael stood, adjusting his shirt. "Look, there's no easy way to say this. I want a divorce. I've already filled out my part of the papers." He gestured nonchalantly to a stack of documents on the dresser. A profound silence filled the room, punctuated only by the soft cooing of my daughter in my arms. The walls of the room that once held laughter and love now bore witness to my life's cruel unraveling. I mustered all the strength left in my postpartum body and stood tall. "Is this what you really want, Michael? A life without your daughter and me?" His gaze was unwavering, cold. "Yes, it's for the best." Those words were the final blow, shattering the last vestiges of the life I thought we had. With tears streaming down my face, yet with a heart strangely solidified by resolve, I whispered, "Then this is goodbye, Michael. Forever." I turned away from the ruins of my marriage, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. I had lost the man I loved, but in his place, I found a fierce determination to protect my daughter and reclaim my life. As I stepped out into the cool night air, cradling my daughter close, a new path lay before us. One of resilience, independence, and, above all, a resolve for retribution. The soft glow of the morning sun did little to warm the chill that had settled in my heart. Sitting at the kitchen table in my parents' home, I cradled a steaming cup of coffee, lost in thought. My daughter, nestled in a bassinet beside me, was the only source of light in my newly darkened world. My mother, a pillar of strength with gentle eyes, joined me. "You don't have to go through this alone, Amelia. We're here for you every step of the way." I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "I know, Mom. It's just, how could he? How could Michael do this to us?" The betrayal stung anew with each passing moment. Michael, whom I had loved unconditionally, had discarded our family like a piece of unwanted furniture. The pain was deep, but beneath it, a fierce determination was taking root. My father, a stern yet caring man, spoke up. "We'll support you, Amelia. Whatever you need, we're here for you." Their unwavering support bolstered my resolve. I had to be strong, not just for my daughter, but for myself too. Michael had taken enough from me. I wouldn't let him take my spirit too. As days turned into weeks, I found a rhythm in my new life. My daughter's gurgles and smiles were my daily respite from the storm that raged within me. I threw myself into work, my career at the multinational firm offering a much-needed distraction. But beneath the surface of this newfound routine, a plan was simmering. Michael had wronged us, and I couldn't let that go unchallenged. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. I began to gather information, sifting through our financial records and scrutinizing Michael's recent behavior. The picture that emerged was one of deceit and manipulation. The more I uncovered, the stronger my resolve grew. Michael wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a man who had taken advantage of my trust and love for his gain. I spent my evenings after putting my daughter to bed, meticulously planning my next steps. With every piece of evidence I gathered, the outline of my strategy became clearer. I would confront Michael, but not as the broken-hearted wife he had left behind. I would face him as a woman empowered by the truth and unafraid to demand justice. As I laid out my plans, a sense of empowerment washed over me. I was no longer the naive girl who had fallen in love with Michael. I was a mother, a survivor, and soon I would be the architect of Michael's undoing. The soft hum of my laptop was the only sound in the room as I scrolled through the report from the private investigator. The pages were a damning testament to Michael's deceit. Photographs of him with various women, credit card statements for extravagant gifts and hotel stays. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin of our marriage, a marriage I now realized was built on lies. I heard a soft knock on the door. My mother peeked in, concern etched on her face. "Amelia, you've been in here for hours. Are you all right?" I looked up, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, Mom, just sorting through some things." She entered, sitting beside me. "You know, it's okay to feel angry, to feel hurt. You don't have to hide it, not from me." I sighed, a weight lifting as I shared the burden of my findings. "It's not just the cheating, Mom, it's everything, the lies, the manipulation. He's not the man I thought I married." My mother's hand found mine, her grip firm and reassuring. "You're strong, Amelia, stronger than you know, and you have us. We'll get through this together." With my family's support, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The time for mourning what could have been was over. Now, it was time for action. I contacted Michael, my voice steady as I confronted him over the phone. "We need to talk, Michael. About the divorce, the finances, everything." There was a pause before he answered, his voice oozing false concern. "Amelia, I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Let's meet and sort everything out." The day of our meeting, I walked into the cafe, every step fueled by a cocktail of determination and righteous anger. Michael sat there, the picture of casual arrogance. "Amelia, let's make this quick, okay? I have a busy day ahead," he said, barely glancing up from his phone. I sat down, my documents neatly stacked in front of me. "Let's start with the finances. I've been reviewing our accounts, and there are some discrepancies I'd like to discuss." Michael's eyes flicked to the papers, then back to me, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Discrepancies? What are you talking about?" I slid the photographs across the table, his secret life laid bare in glossy prints. "This is just the beginning, Michael. I know about the hotels, the gifts, the trips. I know everything." The color drained from his face as he realized the extent of my knowledge. "Amelia, listen, we can work this out. There's no need to make a scene." I leaned in, my voice low but unwavering. "This is not a negotiation, Michael. This is me taking back control. I will not be brushed or silenced. Not anymore." As I detailed my terms for the divorce, including fair financial settlements and custody arrangements, Michael's mask of confidence crumbled. For the first time, I saw him for what he truly was, a coward hiding behind a facade of charm and deceit. I left the cafe with a sense of triumph. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was no longer the victim in this story. I was the author, and this chapter was just the beginning of Michael's reckoning. The morning sun cast long shadows in the living room of my former home, now a battleground for the final confrontation. Michael stood there, his face a mask of faux composure, beside him his mistress, a picture of uneasy defiance. My parents flanked me, their presence a silent testament to their unwavering support. My father's stern gaze bore into Michael, while my mother held my daughter, a protective shield against the toxic atmosphere. "Amelia, why drag this out? Let's just settle this and move on," Michael started, his voice tinged with irritation. I shook my head, my resolve steeling. No, Michael. You don't get to dictate how this ends. Not after everything you've done. He scoffed, a hollow laugh devoid of humor. What do you want then? Money? Is that what this is about? I stepped forward, my voice steady. This is about respect, something you clearly know nothing about. It's about acknowledging your actions and their consequences. His mistress piped up, her voice shrill. Michael, let's just give her what she wants and get rid of her. My father's voice boomed across the room. You will speak to my daughter with respect. She's here to settle matters rightfully. Michael glared at me, his veneer of control slipping. Fine, Amelia, what do you want? I laid out my terms, every demand a strike against his ego and his betrayal. I want full custody of our daughter. You will have supervised visits until I deem otherwise. As for our finances, I've detailed a fair division, considering your extracurricular activities. Michael's face reddened, a vein throbbing in his temple. You can't do this to me. I won't let you take everything. But before he could continue, the door burst open. In strode my in-laws, their faces a mix of shock and anger. Michael, what on earth is going on here? His father bellowed, his disappointment palpable. Michael turned, a deer caught in the headlights. Dad, it's not what it looks like. His mother, tears brimming in her eyes, looked at me. Amelia, we had no idea. We're so sorry. The tables had turned. Michael, once the manipulator, was now cornered by the truth. His parents' arrival was the final blow, stripping away any pretense of innocence. The negotiations were tense, but with the weight of my evidence and the support of my family, Michael had no choice but to agree to my terms. As we left, my father's arm around my shoulders, I felt a sense of closure. The chapter of my life tainted by Michael was ending, and a new chapter, one of hope and strength, was beginning. The soft rustle of leaves and the gentle chirping of birds formed a serene backdrop as I sat on the veranda of my new home overseas. My daughter played at my feet, her innocent laughter a balm to my once weary soul. The rolling hills and sprawling green fields of our new surroundings were a far cry from the stifling confines of my past life. My father, sitting beside me, handed me a cup of tea. You've done well, Amelia. I'm proud of you. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. Thanks, Dad. It wasn't easy, but I feel like I can finally breathe again. The journey here had been tumultuous. From the ashes of my marriage with Michael, I had risen, stronger and more determined. The divorce had been finalized, with the terms heavily in my favor, thanks to Michael's indiscretions and my unwavering resolve. But the sweetest victory was watching Michael's facade crumble under the weight of his actions. His mistress had left him once she realized the luxurious lifestyle he provided was no longer sustainable. His colleagues and friends, once drawn to his charismatic persona, now saw him for the fraud he was. I had heard through the grapevine that Michael was living a modest life now, his nights of extravagance a distant memory. The man who once held himself above others was now humbled by his own misdeeds. As I watched my daughter chase butterflies across the lawn, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight for justice, it had all led to this moment of tranquility. I'm thinking of starting a blog, I mused aloud. Maybe share my story, help others who might be going through similar struggles. My father nodded. That's a great idea. You have a lot of wisdom to share, Amelia. The sound of a car pulling up the driveway caught our attention. My mother emerged, her arms laden with groceries, her face breaking into a smile as she saw us. Looks like you two are having a deep conversation, she said, joining us on the veranda. Just reflecting on the past and planning for the future, I replied, standing up to help her with the bags. As we unpacked the groceries together, I felt a surge of gratitude for my family. They had been my rock through the storm, and now they were my companions in this new chapter of life. The ordeal with Michael was behind me, but it had taught me invaluable lessons. I had discovered my strength, the importance of family, and the power of resilience. Now, as I looked forward to the future, I was filled with hope. Hope for new beginnings, for growth, and for the endless possibilities that lay ahead for my daughter and me. The day Richard threw the crumpled divorce papers at my feet is etched in my memory like a scar. I remember standing there, frozen, as he said those chilling words, "I've sold the house because I'm moving in with her." It's over, Anna. I was 34 then, a devoted homemaker to our son Jason, who was barely 13. Our life as I knew it shattered in that single moment. I was blindsided, naive, and utterly unprepared for what was to come. Richard and I met when I was just 19. He was 26, a charming man working at a pharmaceutical company's main office. I was a fresh high school graduate, working as a receptionist at one of its subsidiaries. His attention flattered me. I was young, inexperienced, and he seemed like a dream come true. Our whirlwind romance led to an unplanned pregnancy, and before I knew it, we were married in a modest ceremony. Life then was simple, or so I thought. I devoted myself to our home and to Jason. Richard was often busy, his presence in the house dwindling over the years. I didn't question it. I was too caught up in the day-to-day of raising our son and managing our home. The day he left, everything crumbled. I was forced to confront the reality that had been lurking beneath the surface of our seemingly happy life. Richard's infidelity, his growing distance, the signs were all there, but I had chosen to ignore them. With nowhere else to go, Jason and I moved back to my family home. My sister Laura and her husband were not exactly welcoming. Their cold stares and hushed conversations made it clear that we were burdens, intruders in their settled life. I felt lost. A high school graduate with no significant work experience, suddenly tasked with finding a job to support myself and my son. The job market was intimidating, each rejection a blow to my already fragile state. But I had Jason to think about, a young boy thrust into a world of adult problems. It was during this time of desperation that I found a job at a call center. It was far from ideal, but it was a start, a glimmer of hope in the darkness that had enveloped my life. The job was challenging. Long hours, irate customers, and a constant buzz of activity. But it gave me a sense of purpose, something I had lost in the chaos of my personal life. As I navigated the complexities of the corporate world, I realized how sheltered I had been. My lack of knowledge, particularly about legal matters like divorce and alimony, had left me vulnerable, at the mercy of Richard's whims. This realization fueled a fire within me. I vowed to never let myself be so helpless again. I immersed myself in learning, in understanding the world beyond the confines of home and family. As Jason grew, I saw the impact of our situation on him. He was quiet, more reserved than his peers, his eyes often holding a depth that was too mature for his age. But he was resilient, adapting to our new life with a strength that I admired. Our journey was just beginning, a path filled with struggles and revelations. But in those struggles, I found a strength I never knew I had. And in those revelations, a determination to fight back, to claim what was rightfully ours. Life at my sister Laura's house was a daily reminder of how far we had fallen. Her husband Mark barely concealed his disdain, often remarking, "Anna, you need to find your own place soon. We can't support you forever." The pressure was relentless. I scoured job listings daily, each rejection deepening the sense of despair. But it was Jason's quiet resilience that kept me going. Despite the turmoil, he focused on his studies, his determination unwavering. One day, I stumbled upon a job opening at a customer service center. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a chance. The interview was nerve-wracking. I sat there, feeling out of place in my outdated suit, my resume embarrassingly thin. "Why do you want this job?" the interviewer asked. I wanted to say, "I have no choice." But instead, I mustered a smile and said, "I'm looking for an opportunity to learn and grow." To my surprise, they offered me the job. It was a contract position, but it was a start. I remember the mixed emotions I felt telling Laura and Mark. Relief, but also a stinging sense of inadequacy. As Mark said, "Finally, you can start contributing." The job was challenging. The fast-paced environment, the endless calls, it was overwhelming. But I persevered, driven by the need to provide for Jason and to prove to myself that I could stand on my own. As I settled into the routine, I couldn't help but reflect on my marriage with Richard. How had I been so blind? The late nights, the unexplained absences, the whispered phone calls. I had brushed them off, believing in the illusion of a happy family. But the truth was, Richard had been living a double life, and I was just a convenient facade. This realization was a bitter pill to swallow. It fueled a growing anger within me, an anger towards Richard for his betrayal and towards myself for my naivety. But it was a conversation with a coworker that truly opened my eyes. She was a single mother, like me, but much more informed. As we talked about our experiences, she said something that struck a chord. "Anna, did you get any alimony or child support? You know you're entitled to it, right?" I was stunned. The thought had never crossed my mind. Richard had left us with nothing, and I had just accepted it. I realized then how much I didn't know, how unprepared I was for the real world. Determined to make things right, I began to educate myself. I read books, searched online, anything I could find on divorce and family law. The more I learned, the more I understood the extent of Richard's manipulation. And then one day, I received a call from Jason's school. He had been in a fight. My heart sank as I rushed to the school, fearing the worst. But what I found was not a troubled child, but a young man pushed to his limits. "He called you a gold digger," Jason said, his eyes fiery with anger. "He said you were after Dad's money. I couldn't let him say that about you." I was speechless. The pain and humiliation of our situation had reached my son, poisoning his world. It was a wake-up call. I couldn't let Richard's betrayal define us any longer. That night, as I watched Jason sleep, I made a vow. I would fight back. I would reclaim what Richard had taken from us, not just for my sake, but for Jason's. It was time for Richard to face the consequences of his actions. The small apartment we eventually moved into was a far cry from the home we once shared with Richard, but it was ours. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal, but it represented a fresh start. Jason adapted quickly, his resilience continually surprising me. He threw himself into his studies with a fervor that was both impressive and concerning. "I want to do well, Mom, for us," he would say, his determination shining through his words. I had been working at the call center for a year now. The job was still demanding, but I had grown more confident, more adept at handling the challenges. The sense of achievement was small, but it was there, a constant reminder that I was more than Richard's discarded wife. One evening, as Jason and I were having dinner, he looked up from his plate and said, "Mom, do you ever think about Dad?" The question caught me off guard. Richard was a subject we rarely touched upon. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not in the way you might think. I think about what he did to us, how he left us with nothing." Jason's eyes darkened. "I hate him for what he did. He thinks he can just walk away without any consequences." His words struck a chord in me. The anger, the sense of injustice that had been simmering within me, found resonance in Jason's words. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "He shouldn't get away with it." Over the next few weeks, I began to research more about divorce and family law. I learned about alimony, child support, and the legal avenues available for redress. The more I learned, the more empowered I felt. Then a breakthrough came. I discovered that in cases of infidelity, the betrayed spouse could file for alimony even years after the divorce, under certain conditions. This information was a revelation. Richard had cheated, and I had proof. The late-night calls, the secretive behavior, it all added up. Emboldened by this discovery, I approached a lawyer. She was sympathetic, her eyes reflecting an understanding that went beyond professional courtesy. "You have a case," she said, "but it won't be easy. Are you ready for this?" I nodded, my resolve firm. "I'm ready, for myself and for Jason." The lawyer laid out a plan. We would file for alimony, citing Richard's infidelity and his failure to provide financial support after the divorce. The process would be long and possibly contentious, but I was prepared. I had to be. Jason was supportive, his quiet strength a constant source of comfort. "We'll get through this, Mom," he assured me. "We're in this together." The day we filed the lawsuit, I felt a mix of emotions. Fear, anxiety, but above all, a sense of righteousness. Richard had wronged us, and it was time for him to answer for his actions. As the legal proceedings began, I braced myself for the backlash. Richard was not going to take this lying down, but I was no longer the naive young woman he had left behind. I was stronger, wiser, and I was ready to fight. The legal battle against Richard was like opening a Pandora's box. The lawyer's investigation unearthed more than just infidelity. It revealed a web of lies and deceit that Richard had woven over the years. As we sat in the lawyer's office one afternoon, she presented us with a file. "This is more than I expected," she said, her tone serious. "Richard wasn't just unfaithful, he was living a double life." The documents in the file painted a damning picture. Bank statements, credit card bills, and photos, evidence of Richard's secret life, a life filled with luxury and indulgence, all while neglecting his family. "Look at this," the lawyer pointed to a photograph. It was Richard, looking carefree and happy, with a woman who was not me, his arm wrapped around her. My heart clenched at the sight, but I steeled myself. This was the truth, the reality I had to face. Jason's face hardened as he looked at the evidence. How could he do this? To us, to you. His voice was a mix of anger and disbelief. "We'll make him pay for this," I said, my voice firm. "He can't get away with it." The lawsuit took a toll on us. Richard's lawyers were aggressive, trying to discredit me, paint me as a vindictive ex-wife. But I stood my ground, bolstered by the evidence and the support of Jason and our lawyer. Then came the day of the deposition. Richard sat across from us, his demeanor smug and confident. But that confidence waned as the lawyer began to present the evidence. "Mr. Richard, can you explain these expenses?" she asked, her tone accusatory as she slid the bank statements across the table. Richard's eyes flicked over the documents, and I saw a flicker of panic. "These are personal expenses. They have nothing to do with my marriage." "And these photos," the lawyer continued, her gaze unwavering, "they tell a different story." Richard's facade began to crack. He fumbled for words, his composure slipping. It was nothing serious, just a fling." "A fling?" Jason interjected, his voice icy. "You destroyed our family for a fling?" The room was thick with tension. Richard's lawyer tried to intervene, but the damage was done. The evidence was overwhelming, Richard's excuses feeble and unconvincing. As we left the deposition, I felt a sense of vindication. Richard had been exposed for what he truly was, a cheat. But it was not over yet. The lawsuit would continue, and I knew Richard would fight back. But I was ready. For the first time, I felt in control, no longer a victim of Richard's betrayal. I was fighting back not just for myself, but for Jason, for the life we deserved. The lawsuit against Richard was dragging on, each hearing more contentious than the last. But amid this turmoil, a surprising development unfolded. One evening, Jason came home, a peculiar look on his face. "Mom, you won't believe what happened today," he said, a mix of amusement and disbelief in his voice. "What happened?" I asked, curious. "I had a job interview today at a pharmaceutical company. Guess who the HR manager is?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Not Richard?" Jason nodded. "Yes, Richard. He didn't recognize me at first. I guessed he'd forget his own son's face." The irony was bitter. Richard, who had discarded his family for his career, was now unknowingly interviewing his own son. "What did you do?" I asked, a part of me anxious about the encounter. Jason's eyes gleamed with a cold fire. "I played along at first, but then the end. I couldn't resist. I asked him if the company condones affairs. The look on his face was priceless when he realized who I was. I was torn between shock and a sense of poetic justice. Richard, confronted by the son he had abandoned in a setting where he had always felt most powerful. "What did he say?" I pressed, my heart racing. "He denied it, of course. So I pushed further. I asked how he could sit there interviewing me when he destroyed our family for his own selfish desires." Jason's voice was bitter, but there was a sharp sense of triumph, too. He was speechless. I left him there, stewing in his guilt. The revelation was staggering. Richard, now faced with the consequences of his actions in the most unexpected way. It was a twist of fate that seemed almost too fitting. "But why did you go to that interview?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around the situation. Jason's response was simple, yet profound. I needed to see him, face to face, to show him that despite everything, he didn't break us. We're still here, and we're fighting back. The aftermath of Jason's encounter with Richard at the job interview sent ripples through our ongoing legal battle. Richard, now aware that his own son stood against him, became increasingly desperate in his defense. Our lawyer, Miss Carter, called us for a strategy meeting. "Richard's lawyers are pushing for a settlement," she informed us as we sat in her office. "But given the evidence in Jason's testimony, I think we can push for more. What do you want to do?" I looked at Jason, seeking his opinion. His jaw was set, his determination clear. "We go all the way," he said firmly. "He needs to be held accountable, not just financially, but morally, too." Miss Carter nodded, her expression resolute. "Good. Then let's prepare for the next hearing. It's going to be a tough one, but we have the truth on our side." The hearing was indeed challenging. Richard's lawyer tried to paint a picture of a remorseful man who had simply made a mistake. But Miss Carter was relentless, presenting evidence of Richard's deceit and his neglect of his family responsibilities. Richard himself took the stand, his demeanor a mix of defiance and feigned contrition. "I regret the pain I caused my family," he said, his voice lacking genuine remorse. "But I believe the settlement offered is fair and just." His words rang hollow, and I felt a surge of anger. How could he stand there playing the victim after all he had done? It was then that Jason spoke up. "Fair and just?" he challenged, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Was it fair to abandon your family? To lie and cheat while we struggled to make ends meet?" The courtroom fell silent, the weight of Jason's words hanging in the air. Richard looked at his son, a flicker of something, guilt perhaps, crossing his face. But it was too late for regrets. The judge, after deliberation, ruled in our favor. The settlement was significantly more than what Richard had offered, a tangible acknowledgement of the harm he had caused. As we left the courthouse, a sense of vindication filled me. It wasn't just about the money, it was about justice, about holding Richard accountable for his actions. "We did it, Mom," Jason said, a hint of a smile on his lips. "We finally made him pay." The legal victory over Richard was more than just a win in court. It was a reclaiming of our dignity and a step towards healing. But the story didn't end there. The consequences of Richard's actions started to unravel his life, both professionally and personally. One evening, a few weeks after the trial, I received a call from an old acquaintance who worked at the same pharmaceutical company as Richard. "Anna, have you heard about Richard?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of shock and gossip. "No. What happened?" I inquired, a sense of curiosity mixed with apprehension. "He's been demoted," she revealed. "After your lawsuit, the company did their own investigation. Turns out he was using company resources for his personal affairs. They've transferred him to a remote factory, practically a career death sentence." I sat in stunned silence. Richard, once the rising star of his company, now faced the repercussions of his actions in the most fitting way. His career, the one thing he had valued over us, was crumbling. Jason listened quietly as I shared the news. "Good," he said simply, but his eyes reflected a deeper sense of satisfaction. "He's getting what he deserves." But the retribution didn't stop there. Richard's social circle, once a tight-knit group of colleagues and friends, started to distance themselves. His reputation, tarnished by the lawsuit and the company investigation, became a liability. I heard from various sources about Richard's fall from grace, how he had to sell his apartment to cover the settlement and legal fees, how his second wife, the woman he left us for, struggled to adjust to their new, diminished lifestyle. It was a harsh reality, but one that Richard had brought upon himself. His choices, driven by selfishness and deceit, had led to his undoing. As I reflected on these developments, I realized that this was not just about revenge. It was about justice, about the universe righting a wrong. Richard, who had once seemed untouchable, was now facing the consequences of his actions. Jason and I talked about it one evening, the discussion more reflective than vengeful. "Do you feel sorry for him?" Jason asked, his voice neutral. I paused, considering the question. "No," I finally said, "but I do feel a sense of closure. It's as if a chapter has finally ended, allowing us to start anew." Jason nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's time to move on, to focus on our lives." The chapter closes with Anna and Jason looking towards the future, the weight of the past slowly lifting from their shoulders. They had faced adversity and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the next chapter of their lives. With the legal battle behind us, and Richard facing the consequences of his actions, a new sense of freedom enveloped our lives. It was as if we had been released from a dark cloud that had loomed over us for years. Our small apartment, once a symbol of our struggle, began to feel more like home. We redecorated, making it a reflection of our new beginning. The walls, once bare, were now adorned with artwork, and the shelves filled with books and memories. Jason, now more relaxed and focused, was excelling in his studies. His previous resolve, born out of anger and a desire for justice, had transformed into a genuine passion for learning. "I'm thinking of applying for a research internship this summer," he told me one evening, his eyes alight with excitement. "That's wonderful, Jason," I said, feeling a surge of pride. "You've worked so hard for this." Our conversations had shifted from the past to the future. from what we had endured to what we hoped to achieve. We talked about travel, about the places we wanted to see, and the experiences we wanted to have. One day, as we sat sipping coffee in our newly decorated living room, I brought up a topic that had been on my mind. "Jason, have you thought about dating? You know, meeting someone special?" He chuckled, a bit embarrassed. "I've been so focused on school and everything else. But yeah, I think I'm ready to start dating." I smiled, happy to see him considering a normal, happy aspect of life. After everything we had been through, it felt like a victory in itself. As for me, I had grown in my role at the call center, taking on more responsibilities and even mentoring new employees. The job that had once been a necessity had become a source of fulfillment. One evening, as we were having dinner, Jason looked up from his plate and said, "Mom, I've been thinking. We should invite Grandma to come and live with us. She's been alone since Grandpa passed, and I think she'd like it here." The suggestion warmed my heart. "I think that's a great idea, Jason. She's always been there for us. It would be nice to have her close." Our lives had taken a turn towards peace and contentment. With Grandma now living with us, our home felt fuller, brimming with laughter and stories from the past. Her presence brought a sense of completeness, a connection to our roots that we had long missed. One evening, as we sat together, Grandma shared stories of her youth, of the challenges she had faced and overcome. "Life is a tapestry of experiences," she said, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of her years. "Some parts are dark and difficult, while others are bright and joyful, but together they make a beautiful picture." Her words resonated with me. Our journey had been tumultuous, marked by pain and struggle, but it had also been a journey of growth and resilience. We had emerged from the darkness, not unscathed, but stronger and wiser. Jason, now more confident and driven, had become an embodiment of that resilience. His academic pursuits were flourishing, and he had even started dating someone he met at university. Seeing him so happy and fulfilled filled me with an indescribable joy. As for me, I had found a sense of purpose beyond the call center. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping other women who had faced similar challenges. Sharing my story and lending a listening ear brought a sense of fulfillment that I had never known before. One night, as Jason and I sat on our balcony, looking up at the stars, a sense of calm enveloped us. "Mom, do you ever think about Dad anymore?" he asked, his voice gentle. I paused, considering the question. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not in anger or resentment. I think about how far we've come since then, how he was a part of our story but not the defining part." Jason nodded in understanding. "Yeah, I feel the same. He's just a chapter in our past." We sat in silence for a moment, each lost in our thoughts. The journey we had been on was not one we had chosen, but it was one that had shaped us in ways we could never have imagined.